There are a lot of aspects of life that if you allow yourself to contemplate those aspects, there is ample room for very deep contemplation. And there is a seemingly infinite amount of time that you can spend in contemplation of these different things. But when all of it breaks down and you're left with only yourself, with what to do with it, where does that leave you? For most people, it would lead to a sort of conundrum where you might feel inspired by something and then immediately demotivated by that same inspiration because of the amount of time and effort it would take to achieve that motivation. And it really breaks down into this dynamic where when we're contemplating these things, we're turning it into a group dynamic. We're assuming that if we're going to start at this point A and get to this point B, that not only are these X amount of people going to want you, but they are going to need you as well in order to get that far. And at that point, you really just need to get over yourself. Nobody needs anybody. Nobody wants anybody. Anybody that tells themselves that they want someone in their life, anyone who tells themselves that they need someone in their life is just lying to themselves. They it may sound pessimistic to put it this way, but everybody does everything according to a self-serving justification of what they're doing. And there are people who still exhibit selflessness, but are carrying that forth in a completely selfish manner. They might not be doing it for the credit. They might not be doing it for the praise, but they're doing it out of some sort of internal instinct that they feel driven towards, that they are inspired by. And they are doing that for themselves. So there are better things to do for other people than others, but it's entirely self-serving in the end, no matter which way you cut it. Doing things for others is a virtue of reality. It often makes a person feel better about themselves. It often, will help another person out of tough times. There are positive effects to doing things for others. That's not what I'm trying to disprove. What I'm trying to make as a clear point is that if you weren't there to do something for, that person would just find someone else to do something for. If they were that dedicated to doing something for somebody else, so in the end, they're doing it for themselves. Their personal reasoning doesn't necessarily matter so much, but they're still making clear to you the point, I don't need you. The point, I don't want you. It may sound counterintuitive to come across a situation this way, but if you think about the idea of not receiving something unless you give something first, there's sort of a dynamic at play when you look at things that way. You're not being expectant of others, for one thing, so that's a positive vibe that you're giving off. But also, you're only asking for something if you can offer something in return. And so it keeps everything fair and balanced. A person can unnecessarily raise their virtues, and that doesn't make them any better of a person than anyone else by doing so, which to me still fully indicates that it's for selfish reasoning. It heightens a person's expectations of themselves, perhaps. That could be a positive way of looking at it, at the same time as looking at it as a self-serving initiative. If I strive to do better and better for everyone, to me, that's self-serving for myself, because I am heightening my expectations of myself in order to better perform for others. And so it is both serving me and others as well. Right? And, getting back to what I was saying near the beginning of the video, this breaks down to essentially getting over yourself. Don't think so hard about who wants you or who needs you. Don't think so hard about what you can or cannot do. Focus instead simply on what there is to do. It's a little bit different than focusing on what you can or cannot do. Focusing on what there is to do is a more static existence. There's this language where you use a static position versus a dynamic position. And a static position, the point of contact remains the same every time you go back to it. And so it's the same reference point every single time. Whereas a dynamic position, the point of contact shifts every time you come back to it, right? And so there's a new area in which to focus every time you go towards something, right? So keeping your viewpoint on a more static position allows you to simply see what there is for what there is. It allows you to let go of yourself and go with the flow instead. And it allows for a more detached point of view, which is a more positive outlook than either beating yourself up or giving others a hard time for things that you're going through. It's better just to get over yourself. It's better to not need other people's needs or wants of you. It's better to develop an internal resilience to those things, actually. You don't want someone to need you. You don't want someone to want you. It's sort of indifferent whether or not somebody wants you, right? But you don't want somebody to need you. And why would you want somebody to want you? I don't know. That just leads to a manipulation factor. If you want someone to want you, then it's sort of requiring an amount of control over them that can drive them into different places in their own reality. And if you're not careful about it, you can steer them in the wrong direction very easily. So it's better to avoid the needs and wants of other people, even as they pertain to yourself. There are only so many ways that you can please others. You can't make everybody happy. And part of accepting that is getting over yourself. there are a number of ways in which to do so. Like you can recognize your own simplicity. You can recognize your own mortality. You can recognize your own limitations, right? These sort of things is what allows you to not only get over yourself, but to accept that there is only so much that you can do, right? And I'm trying to avoid making claims of pride or false pride when I'm saying get over yourself. It's sort of like pride that needs to be humbled, but at the same time it's more so like it's more or less unrealistic expectations of your own reality, unrealistic expectations of yourself. And taking that head on is too much for you. So you need to get over yourself and say, like, look, if I perceive this of myself this way, I'm actually too much for myself. So I need to look at myself differently for a change. And this sort of mindset can help you reconstruct your reality in a more progressive way, in a way that allows you to ensure productivity in your life, in a way that ensures healthier relationships, healthier communication with others, and a more consistent flow with the rest of reality. And realistically, it only takes a small amount of practice and a small amount of effort to think this way. It's literally as easy as, even someone like me just thinking to myself, like, I got to get over myself. Or if someone is harassing you, you can tell them, like, get over yourself. It's just a quick, simple thing that you can say to yourself or wherever the problem area is. You can say, get over yourself, or I need to get over myself. Like, get over myself, I need to move on from that part of me, and doing that can make profound changes in a person's life. It really is the root of humility as a virtue. It allows everything else to take place before you take place, right? And so, that's one of those selfless yet self-serving mechanisms that I'm talking about. Like, humility is one of the most selfless virtues a person can acquire. But it's still self-serving to the extent that you can recognize things that way. And so, long story short, in summary, not everybody has the same needs or wants or expectations as you do. Nobody wants or needs anybody, and our expectations of other people are based on the lies we tell ourselves about the wants and needs of others. And so to get over ourselves is the key stepping stone to crossing to a new path that is more productive for your lifestyle.